Now, Ed Miliband has been setting out how he'd change planning laws if Labour were in power to stop the rise of payday lenders on Britain's high streets. The Labour leader says he'd give councils more power to stop certain kinds of businesses moving into empty shops. Well, joining us from our central London studio is Packman, an author and expert on payday lenders. So just how big a problem are payday lenders on Britain's high streets at the moment?
Well, since risk aversity in banks lending money to people, there've been a great rise in payday lending on the high street, and that's proven by not only OFT investigations and investigations by the Department for Business, Industry and Skills and Research produced by them, but Ed Miliband's call today for changes to planning laws, because there are so many payday lending shops littering the high street, which is worrying consumers and local residents there.
It's on the rise, but that means the demand must be there. Are they exploitative or are they a necessary evil?
Well, I think they can be exploitative, and that's why the OFT are investigating. For example, there are ways in which they collect their debts, which is particularly dubious and was very high on the Office for Fair Trading's investigation on them. But I think that the highlighting point, which is how much they cost. You can pay up to £25 to £30 for every £100 you spend. These are great big prices for very vulnerable customers. It's baffling to me as to why the most poor, the most vulnerable, have to pay so much for credit when there's no end of price increases for consumers and for wage stagnation and things like this.
Well, people are using these as a lifeline. I mean, often they've exhausted every other means of getting money. How much different is the interest charged on a payday loan to, say, an unauthorised overdraft at their bank?
Well, there is some parity. I mean, payday lenders are largely higher in price than a lot of unauthorised overdraft prices. But nonetheless, I think that those two mutually things, we don't have to sort of look at those separate from each other. There needs to be campaigns against the rising prices of unauthorised charges as well. But on this particular issue, payday lending is far more expensive. What there should be is a build-up of more alternative lenders like credit unions, who are far more cheaper and are able to give debt advice to people. They're far more a responsible lender. These are the things that we should be building up on our high streets. These are the places that should be given shop fronts by local councils. And this is also something that could happen, if Ed Miliband's plans are taken forward.
And the payday loan firms' defence is that they've long argued that quoting standard interest rates known as APR are irrelevant because they average out the cost of a loan over a year. This, they say, makes their rates seem more expensive than they actually are.
No, I think that's right. So this is something on which campaigners on payday lending, like myself, and payday lenders have more or less the same message. We don't necessarily like APR because they don't like it because it's annualized. We don't like it because it doesn't give you the full story about how much people are paying. But aside from that, people are paying £25 to £30, maybe more if it's an online lender, for each loan on £100 taken out. This is very expensive, and when you consider the interest rates that are dealt by credit unions, who are ironically the only financial service in this country who are obliged to set an interest rate cap, which is at 26.8%. There's a far cheaper alternative and far more responsible, given that they offer things like debt advice, debt solutions and things like that.
With regard to the high street in general, I mean, different shops offering the same service provides healthy competition. So is this going to be the case with payday lenders? If different companies are popping up on the high street, are we going to see more competitive rates for consumers? Is it actually good news?
No, this is quite the problem. So payday lenders don't compete on price. So if there's more payday lenders on your high street, this will not drive prices down because payday lenders themselves compete on speed. So what we are seeing is payday lenders telling you that they can put money in your bank accounts in 15 minutes. They're not going through the proper credit checks. This is all in the Office for Fair Trading's responsible guidance, but nonetheless they're breaking these rules. And so with the proliferation of payday lenders on the high street, what's happening is that people are being sold loans that are not necessarily good for their finances. And that's the problem. So it's not driving down prices. Market rules don't really apply here to payday lending in the same way that they apply to other services. What's happening is people are being ripped off because payday lenders are competing with each other to give you credit as quickly as possible.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I mean, you hear all the horror stories of people not being able to keep up on their low repayments, and you've mentioned the almost unlawful tactics that some loan companies take to get their money back, and people falling behind and getting into all sorts of trouble. But do the majority of payday loans get paid off quite comfortably and end with a happy customer?
From the Office for Fair Trading's investigation on this, we've seen that over a third of customers make late repayments to those payday loans, and sometimes those loans aren't paid at all. But even so, we don't see the ultimate price that is paid for taking out a payday loan. Payday loans are very expensive. Granted, the point is that there are very few options on the high street, which is why we should be building up the credit union movement, why there should be more alternative lenders. But nonetheless, no, the facts show that a great many payday loans that are sold to people and consumers on the high street online make people struggle more. People get into debt cycles, and that does a significant problem to their finances that go probably unnoticed on many of the press outlets.
Okay, Carl Packman, author of Loan Sharks, I should say. Thank you very much for giving us your view on payday loan